Welcome to today's session on costing for garment export orders. This is session 7 and the name of the subject is export merchandising and exim documentation. Now what we are going to talk about broadly in this session is we're going to talk about garment costing. We'll take a little deep dive. We'll also look at the fabric costing, and then we'll go on to the costing for various raw materials and accessories. Then we'll look at the stages of costing. And then we go down to a more basic concept, which is the costs. And after having understood the first 5 points, we are then going to talk about export pricing and costing. And last but not the least, we are going to talk about the bill of material. So first, we talk about garment costing. Now we are on slide number 4, and you can actually see visual of a blue shirt, and there's a table. This is called a costing sheet. Now this is just one of the types of the costing sheets which are used in the garment exports. And if you see, we have 6 columns. First is the serial number, second is the item description, third is the consumption per unit, fourth is the cost of the material per unit. And then, of course, it's important to specify what is the unit of measurement, because there are some materials which come in meters or yards. Stitching thread comes in reels, main label, etc. They would come in pieces. And if you talk about fabric in knitted garments, then we talk about fabric in kilos or ounces. And of course, at the last column that we have, that is the multiplication of consumption per unit into the cost of the material. So if you just take the first entry, the item description is 40s poplin, 133 by 72. So 40s poplin is 40s count both in warp and weft direction, and we have specified the ends per inch and picks per inch, which is ends per inch is 133 and picks per inch is 72. And consumption per shirt, simply put, what we are saying here is that in one shirt we need 2 meters of poplin, and in the next column we have cost per unit. So what we are saying here is that the cost of poplin per meter is 50 rupees. And how much fabric do we want? How much fabric do we require for one shirt? So we require 2 meters. So in total, how much money do we have to spend on the fabric to make one shirt? So that is 2 meters multiplied by per unit cost, which is 50 rupees. So essentially what we are saying is that we have to spend 100 rupees on 40s poplin, because the cost is 50 rupees per meter and we need 2 meters to make one shirt. So therefore we are spending 100 rupees per shirt. Now within this shirt itself, we need 60s cambric, another fabric, in the collar, in the cuff, and things like that. So 60s cambric is 60s count both in warp and weft direction, and the consumption is just 20 centimeter, and the cost of cambric is 40 rupees. So in total, we have to spend 8 rupees to buy 20 centimeter of cambric, which will be used in one piece of shirt. So if we go to the serial number 3, we have stitching thread, and normally it takes about 190 meters to make a shirt, and one reel of the thread, stitching thread, carries 400 meters. So what we have taken over here is a round figure. What we are saying here is that the number of reels required to stitch one shirt is half reel, because one reel has 400 meters and half of the reel is 200 meters, and we just need 190 meters to stitch a garment, stitch a shirt. Now what is the price of one reel of stitching thread? It is 4 rupees. So therefore, if we multiply 4 with half, we get 2 rupees. So what we are saying is that we have to spend 2 rupees on stitching thread to stitch one shirt. Then we go to main label, size label, care label. Main label is, the purpose of main label is to illustrate the name of the brand which the shirt is representing. Size label, the purpose is to show the size, and care label is to instruct the customer, the consumer, as to how is the garment supposed to be washed or dry cleaned, and how is it to be dried, how is it to be ironed, and things like that. And this is just a ballpark figure. Normally main label comes for about 1 rupee. If there are some exotic labels, some designer labels which require different kinds of fibers, maybe polyester and silk and viscose and something like that, and has very ornate design, maybe a jacquard or something like that, so the cost of main label can go to 5 rupees, 10 rupees, depending on what goes into making of that main label. If you talk about size label is primarily, it's a small size. It is small in size, and the material is not so expensive, and therefore here we have taken the price of one size label as 75 paise. And care label is cheaper, size label is also cheaper. So care label is 25 paise, size label is 75 paise. So in total we are saying that we need about 2 rupees to spend on the care labels, on the labels. And then seventh serial number, we have interlining. Interlining, interlining is the fusing that we use at the collar and cuff and the placket if required. So its interlining is also called fusing. Interlining, we need roughly 10 centimeters per garment, and this interlining is roughly priced at somewhere around 20 rupees per meter. So 20 rupees multiplied by 10 centimeter is 2 rupees. So we are saying we are spending 2 rupees on the fusing. And then of course we have the quintessential buttons. Buttons, these are polyester buttons, and buttons are normally like about 10 paise per button. And in total we are looking at about 10 buttons. So we can see that there are 7 buttons in the front, and then you have 2 buttons on the cuffs, and then you have one extra button which is tucked inside, just in case one of the button gets damaged. Then all good brands, they provide one extra button on the inside of the placket at the bottom. So we have 10 buttons here, and cost per button is 10 paise. So in total we are spending 1 rupee on the buttons for one shirt. Cutting, normally for a garment like this formal shirt, the cutting is about 3 rupees, and stitching is roughly 28 rupees, depending on whether it has a pocket or whether it has some kind of embellishment or some extra work. Then the stitching cost may change, and all the factories have their own benchmarks. So before you take the price of stitching, you have to necessarily take the advice of the production manager or the production head, who will look at the picture or who will look at the garment and will tell you that this is the amount that will be required to produce this garment. So only upon getting this figure from the production department, you can add that figure to the costing sheet. Otherwise you cannot, not on your own. If you go to the 11th point, which is washing and packing. Now normally a mid-size export house working with a mid-size buyer, not a large buyer, normally the washing and packing, they are ready to pay about 20 rupees. So, and the factory also charges 20 rupees per piece for washing and packing, which includes washing, removal of stains and other things, ironing, and then the poly bag, if there are any hang tags and size sticker and anything which has to be put onto the poly bag, all of that, and then the carton. So all of that is clubbed under washing and packing, and that is 20 rupees. So now what we do is, we have all the raw materials and we also have the labor cost. Now the labor cost is in washing and packing also, and the labor cost is in the cutting and stitching also. So we have taken the cost of the total material, which is the fabric and the accessories, and we have taken the cost implication of cutting and stitching, which is where labor is involved, and washing and packing, where labor is involved as well as other materials are involved. So we do a total of that, and we are getting a total of 166 rupees. Now in India, because of extreme competition in the global markets, earlier during during early 2000s, we would add overheads as 20%. Now today, because you have to give competitive prices, so you cannot take overheads more than 10%. So in this example, we have taken overheads as 10%, and we are taking 10% of the subtotal, which is 166. Now 10% of 166 is 16.6. Now we add the subtotal 166 to the overheads, which is 1660, and we get a total of 182.60. Now this is the total cost that has been incurred in terms of materials, labor and overhead, which is the running of the factory. Now after this total, we add our profit. Now you can take profits at 10%, 20%, 40%, 50%, whatever. At the end of the day, you have to give competitive prices. So in this example, we have taken profit as 25%. So we take 25% of 182.60 and we get 45.65. And now we can add the total 182.60 and we add the profit 45.65 and we get 228 rupees 0.25 paise. So in this example of a formal shirt, the X factory price is 228.25 rupees per shirt, and X factory price means that we are selling the shirt at 228.25 rupees and we will be delivering the shirt just outside our factory. We will not be sending it to any other destination. So the person who wants to buy this shirt will have to pay 228.25 rupees and will have to collect this shipment from my factory. That is the essence of this X factory price, 228.25. And if you go to the next slide, which is fifth slide, what we have seen here is the 4 pillars of costing, which is the raw material, fabric, accessories and packing material, the labor, and then we have talked about overheads, and then we have talked about profits. So in the next section, we are going to talk about fabric costing. Now we have taken the price of fabric, what is poplin, as 50 rupees, 60 is cambric as 40 rupees. Now how do we arrive at that figure of 50 or 40 rupees is what we are going to discuss in the next section, which is related to fabric costing.